Congratulations on hitting the end of this chapter. This chapter was all about function overloading. And function overloading is a mechanism we have in C++ to set up different functions with the same name and have these functions be different only in the parameters we have in the functions. And the differences may be in the types of the parameter, in the order the parameters are passed in, and we can really be flexible in how we set up these overloads. And once you have your function overloads in place, the compiler is going to select the correct one based on the arguments you pass in your function when you call it, like we see here. We started out by looking at how you can set up overloads based on different parameters that you pass to your function. And we saw that you could pass in different parameters, for example, and have valid overload set up. And we saw how flexible this could be. We also saw that we could set up overloads based on different pointer types. For example, here we have a double pointer and an int pointer, and these are going to be valid overloads in our C++ program. Next, we looked at overloads with reference parameters, and we saw that this could really be ambiguous if you call your function with a variable that you have set up in your program. We saw that you also have to be careful if you are using an overload with non-const references as parameters, because that could lead to wrong overloads to be selected by the compiler if you use implicit conversions. We saw that you could get around this problem by either passing your parameters as const reference or doing the transformation yourself and make sure you are passing in the type that the compiler expects in here. Next, we looked at overloads with const parameters by value, and we saw that the compiler was treating these two overloads as the same. So you had to make a choice on which one you want, because if you have all of them in place here, you're going to get a redefinition error. Next, we saw that we could overload with pointer to const. So for example, here we have two overloads. One is taking int pointer, the other is taking const int pointer. These are valid overloads, and the compiler is going to select the correct one based on the argument that you pass to the function when you call it. But if you use const pointer parameters like we are doing here, the compiler is going to treat these two guys as the same function, and you're going to get a redefinition error. We saw that the reason was that the parameters are passed by value, the pointer itself is passed by value, and again, the compiler is going to treat these two guys as one function overload, and you're going to get a redefinition error. And the choice you have is to really choose either of these one, and you're going to take out the other one. For example, if you want the first one here, you're going to ignore the second one here. We also saw that we could overload with const references. For example, here, the first overload here is going to take an int reference as a parameter. The second one is going to take const int as a parameter. This is going to work fine, but you had to be sure of the effects of the functions here. In the first one, we are able to change the parameter that was passed to us because it is a reference and it is a non-const reference. So we can really change things in our body here, and the changes are going to be visible on the outside of the function here. In the second overload here, we are not allowed to do any change through our reference here because it is a const reference. If we try to do a change like that, we're going to get a compiler error. And last but not least, we saw that you had to be really careful if you are using function overloads with default arguments. Because if you set up a call like this without a parameter inside, the compiler is going to see two candidates for your function call, and it is going to be really confused. This is really all we set out to do in this chapter. I hope you found it interesting. We are going to stop here in this lecture. In the next chapter, we're going to start and learn about lambda functions. Go ahead and finish up here and meet me there.